I want to thank all of you for being with us here today, representing the service members who were murdered in a terrorist attack. You also represent the Gold Star families, all of them, through the Afghan conflict. Behind me are the photos of the 13 U.S. service members who were murdered in a terrorist attack on August 26, 2021, at the airport in Kabul. Their names are Marine Corps Lance Corporal David Espinoza, Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole G., Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Darren Taylor Hoover, Army Staff Sergeant Ryan Christian Knaus, Marine Corps Corporal Hunter Lopez, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Riley J. McCaul, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Dylan Marola, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Kareem Nikoi, Marine Corps Corporal Dagan Page, Marine Corps Sergeant Jahani Rosario Picardo, Marine Corps Corporal Humberto A. Sanchez, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz, and Navy Petty Officer 3rd Class Maxton Soviak. Before we start, I'd like to take a pause for a moment of silence in remembrance of them. Thank you. These men and women were Marines, soldiers, and sailors. They were Americans. They were patriots. They were heroes. But to you, they were more than that. They were your sons, your daughters, your hearts. And they were ripped away from you in an act of violence halfway around the world. As a father of 5, I cannot begin to imagine your pain and suffering. Yet 2 years later, we are still here seeking answers. How did this happen? What went wrong? Why couldn't this tragedy have been prevented? These questions remain unanswered because this administration wants to sweep what happened under the rug. They know they bear the brunt of the blame, and they want to escape any accountability. Well, I will not let that happen. For months, the president's own generals and intelligence community warned that withdrawing all U.S. troops would result in a catastrophe. Our NATO allies begged the president to reconsider. When he refused to relent, both Republicans and Democrats in Congress urged the president to prepare for this ill-advised, unconditional withdrawal from Afghanistan. This was a disgraceful surrender to the Taliban. Through my investigation, we've learned that President Biden's own State Department and Department of Defense warned of increased violence that threatened the safety of our embassy and American citizens. In February 2021, before the president announced his decision to unconditionally withdraw all troops, the regional security officer at the embassy warned that there was a, quote, clear sign that violence in Kabul has risen sharply over the last 45 days. In May of 2021, DoD began planning for a non-combatant evacuation operation, also known as a NEO, stating that conditions in Afghanistan were rapidly approaching the point of triggering the NEO execution. But the State Department, the lead federal agency for a NEO, failed to request one from the Department of Defense, and they only did so after the fall of Kabul. There's an old adage, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. This was the utmost failure. And on June 14, 2021, the embassy's regional security officer again warned of an increase in violence, noting that there was 325% increase in attacks from the same time in the previous year, largely due to the unprecedented Taliban attacks in the country. Yet President Biden ignored all of it. And as a result, the world watched the horrors unfold at the Kabul airport. People falling from airplanes, innocent women and children being beaten and killed by the Taliban attempting to escape to freedom. And your sons and daughter witnessed this. And then the unthinkable happened, a bombing at Abbey Gate, killing 13 U.S. service members and injuring 45 more. Before this committee, Sergeant Tyler Vargas Andrews, who is here today, and Tyler, we want to thank you for being here, testified that Marine snipers at Abbey Gate spotted the suicide bomber before the explosion. Yet they were told by their superiors that they could not engage the threat, were not given permission to engage. The terrorist responsible for this horrific attack was released by the Taliban from a prison at Bagram Air Base, which the Biden administration abandoned. And in fact, thanks to the investigative work of Jerry Dunleavy and James Hassan, we learned the Biden administration asked the Taliban to raid an ISIS-K location near the airport ahead of the bombing that was believed to be a staging ground for an imminent attack on the airport. Not surprisingly, the Taliban did not agree. We also know that the U.S. military officials sought to strike an ISIS-K cell in Afghanistan 2 days before the Abbey Gate attack, and U.S. intelligence even predicted the exact day and time of the bombing at Abbey Gate. Yet, too, that request for an airstrike was denied by our U.S. military. In a massive slap in the face to every person who served in Afghanistan, the Biden administration viewed the Taliban as suddenly our security allies during this evacuation. I've heard from many of you, your sons, Taliban was the enemy, and then they had to work side by side with the enemy. This tragedy was a self-inflicted wound that not only killed 13 U.S. service members, but also killed 170 innocent civilians and injured 45 people in a massive suicide bombing attack. Simply put, it was hell on earth. And the saddest part is, it all could have been prevented. All I can do is offer you my promise. I will not relent in this investigation. I will fight with every fiber of my being and leave no stone unturned until we have the full truth as to how the hell this happened. This Thursday, this committee will be interviewing Ambassador Dan Smith, who led the State Department's Afghanistan After Action Review and is a key witness in our investigation. And in the coming months or weeks, after months of effort, we will finally be interviewing the commanding officer, the Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Brad Whited. And I intend to personally be there for that interview. I will hold those responsible for this catastrophic event. I will hold them accountable, and I will get answers. You all, the Gold Star families, and our veterans deserve no less, and you deserve the truth. And this committee will deliver. As I stated, we have with us here today Marine Sergeant Tyler Vargas Andrews and Army Specialist Aidan Gunderson, who both testified before this committee in March. And we want to thank you for your service and your sacrifice and your courage to come before Congress and tell the American people and these families the truth about what happened. I'd also like to recognize all of the Afghan veterans who are here with us today. And for those veterans who are watching this, for those watching this here today, I have a message for you. Your service was not in vain. It is because of your heroism that we never witnessed a large-scale attack by the terrorists since 9/11 in the last 20 years. We will never forget, and we will never, ever allow this to ever happen again.